everyone. I am Matt Williamson. How's it going? I am recording this Tuesday evening, as I often do, so you can have it at midnight. And by the way, that's how the podcast usually works. You can usually download them at midnight, but just subscribe, spread the word, all that good stuff. Follow me on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Also check out my YouTube page at WilliamsonNFL. But anyway, Mike Tomlin's press conference was today, Tuesday. The big news, of course, is Aaron Rodgers, and I want to discuss the Steelers' passing game and Rodgers and all that stuff today is basically the crux of our conversation. But one note that I didn't love is I think they expect Slay to be ready. He missed one game due to the concussion, which is kind of the usual in the league nowadays. But he basically said Slay's going to go right back in the starting role. And I understand it. It's easy for us to just say bench him, but he does have a long track record in this league. He has some status in that room, the locker room, all that stuff. But frankly, I would have Pierre the starter until further notice. And I would try to work in Samuel a little ahead of Slay. And Slay would probably be my fourth option, to be very honest with you. He's not terrible, but he's more zone than man. Not much of a tackler. I think you got to reward Pierre for how he's played these last couple of weeks. Has kind of blown my socks off. Did not expect that at all. So I didn't love hearing that. I kind of understand it because the one guy's been around the block and the other one's been a lifetime special teamer, more or less. And I don't know how exactly it works Samuel in. But I do think you try to give Samuel a helmet this week as your fourth corner in case of an injury or whatever. And maybe just get him a little bit of snaps here and there just to get his feet wet. It's not an easy situation to handle. But I am a little shocked that it was so clear cut by the sound of the press conference that Slay over Pierre. I don't love it. I don't love it. As I'm sure you know by now, Aaron Rodgers has a broken bone in his left hand, and he has not been ruled out. I mean, they're going to work on it throughout the week in terms of how you're going to protect it. My initial thought was I don't think he would play. One day off, and I would think his aging body wouldn't mind a week without getting hits. I bet his knees and hamstrings and shoulders and back and neck and everything wouldn't mind a week off if it's questionable. And frankly, how I would handle it if it was a 50-50 situation, despite his clout, I would sit him against the Bears because it is a non-conference game as well. Obviously, if it was like a playoff game, I would play him. It sounds like Rodgers very much wants to play. He's had great success against the Bears, much like, Ben did against the Browns in those division rivals between the Packers and Bears. He pretty much owned them for a long stretch of time. And the Steelers don't have a great track record in Chicago where Rodgers does. But he hasn't played great. He's up in age. I would rest him if it's close. We'll see. I'm sure every news channel and everybody will be talking about this all week. But deep down, folks, I think we'll get this answer very late in the week. It'll be Friday or maybe even a true game time decision at noon on Sunday. So that's that. Now that's kind of just getting some of that housekeeping out of the way.
Football season's finally here. Time to check out the latest odds, futures, and win totals on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Think the Steelers are headed to the Super Bowl? Lock in your bets today. Whatever your game, FanDuel Sportsbook delivers the latest lines, futures, and specials, so you can join in on all the action.
So some things I wanted to talk about with this passing game are pretty disturbing. And of course, they're very Aaron Rodgers related. And this is not a bash Rodgers, or frankly, it's definitely not a boost Rudolph conversation. We know Rodgers is the starter the second he's ready and they decide he is. We know that. So the conversation of is the offense in better shape with Rudolph than Rodgers is 100% moot anyway. But there are some things I want to talk about here. Is on Tuesdays is when I really start digging into my stats and doing the analytics and breaking down the opponent. And more, some of this stuff is just standing out, and I think we need to talk about it. So this is going to be a lot of numbers thrown at you. But I also think when you put them all together, it really tells a story for where this passing game is at. And it scares me, to be honest with you. So they produce 27.7 yards per drive. That's the sixth fewest. They go 3 and out at the third highest percentage in the league. They run 5.5 plays per drive. Only Seattle runs fewer. Now, Seattle's offense is awesome, but it's also the most explosive offense in the league. So there's a lot of quick strikes from them, not from the Steelers. They also only eat up 155.6 seconds of clock time per drive. That's the third lowest. I'm sure a lot of that stuff doesn't blow you away, and I've talked about that a fair amount over these last couple of weeks, and all those things have been themes. But the Steelers are also throwing the ball about 59% of their offensive snaps. That's 12th highest. I think that needs to change. I want this offense at 12th lowest in terms of run pass splits. And I think they need to run the ball a much higher percentage of the time. So, because what they're doing is not really working. And I think they're putting too much on the quarterback. And in some ways in the last game and a half, the quarterback has failed them. And maybe he's just in a rough patch. I don't know. But they turn a set of downs into a new set of downs at a 69% rate. Only 7 offenses are worse. Now, only the Rams and Lions have thrown more touchdown passes than Pittsburgh, though. So there's something to be said for that. Steelers thrown 20 touchdown passes. I remember the years like when Pickett and Trubisky and those guys, they might throw 13 in the season. They've already thrown 20, and they've had their bye, and that's third most in the league. So there's a lot of value in that. I mean, in terms of their red zone ability and ability to get the ball in the paint through the air is really, really important. So I'm not even having like huge stands of they need to do this. I do think they need to run the ball more, but I just think that this picture I'm painting, and there's more paint to come, is really telling for where they're at. And a lot of it is disconcerting. So I told you they had a ton of yards after the catch last week. But this is nuts. Over 71% of the Steelers' receiving yards have come after the catch. League average is 50%. They're the only team above 60%, and they're at 71.4%. This is the highest percentage of any team since at least 2016. And I say at least because that's when they started tracking these things. So it could go back 30 years. I don't know. But so much is after the catch. And it's because the ball comes out so quick, and their average depth of target is 6 yards past the line of scrimmage. That's the lowest in the league. And to even put it in perspective, the Raiders and Browns, who you don't want to be linked with in the passing game, they're next lowest at 6'6". So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're the worst if you have a low average depth of target, but you're definitely in some rough neighborhood there with the Browns and Raiders. And it's obvious that the ball comes out at a very short distance. Now, I do think it's noteworthy that the Bears face the 6th highest average depth of target, 8'6". I mean, that's compared to where the Steelers are at 6'0". So maybe you can push the ball down the field a little more this upcoming week, no matter who the quarterback is. But here's the one that really bothers me, though. So they average negative 3.4 air yards to the sticks. What's that mean? That's just not a stat that I've thrown at you very often. It means that their average pass is 3.4 yards short of the line to gain. If that's 1st and 10, that means you're throwing it 3.4 yards short of 10 yards. If it's 3rd and 4, you're 3 yards. You know what I mean? No matter what the line to gain is. So you're minus 3.4. There's a lot of teams that are plus. They average throwing past the sticks. But that's the lowest in the league. And again, if it's not for the after the catch stuff, you leave yourself no chance. And there's a lot of times on 3rd downs they throw short of the sticks that makes me crazy. We do know this, that the Steelers' time to throw is very quick. It's 2.43. That's 3rd quickest. Now, again, this Bears defense, which is pretty bad, by the way, their average time to throw that they face is 2.69 seconds. So only 4 defenses have a higher time to throw against them than the Bears, where the Steelers are the 3rd quickest. So I think you understand where I'm going with this is everything's quick. Everything's dependent on after the catch. Everything seems very predetermined at the line of scrimmage. There's not a lot of progression reading after the snap by Rodgers. I mean, I'm not going to lump Rudolph in there. He only played a half. Rudolph did seem to sit in the pocket more, but they also weren't. I mean, last week's a bad representation because both of them had really high average times to throw because the Bengals can't rush the passer at all. So you could just sit back there and chill. But I think that things need to be examined, and maybe I'm not bashing Rodgers, but he is starting to worry me. And the passing game as a whole worries me. But would it do the team a disservice or be a bad thing necessarily if Rodgers took a week off, heal that left hand up, rest of your body heals a little bit too as we reach deep into November, almost Thanksgiving. Game plan different. Game plan for Rudolph. See how things go differently. Against a defense that's pretty forgiving. It's not as forgiving as the Bengals. Drive the ball down the field a little bit more. Throw to the between the numbers a little bit more. Throw to the 10 to 20 neighborhood a little bit more. Go through your reads a little bit more. A little less predetermined at the line of scrimmage stuff. And that might be easier to do for 1 week with Rudolph and take a few things out of that, good, bad, ugly, and apply it to Rodgers going forward. It's just a thought. I thought it was worth doing a podcast about, especially with today's news that, he might play, he might not, who knows. Now, I'm not sitting here hoping, boy, I hope Rodgers doesn't play. Bench that old man. That's not what I mean. But there are some disturbing trends that are becoming more and more trendy than they were. And I wonder if a little time away might help everybody involved. That's all I'm throwing out there, because some of these things I cited are worrisome. All right, everyone, take care.